Welcome to the Clear Admit MBA Admissions Podcast. I'm Graham Richmond, and this is your wiretaps for Monday, August 18th, 2025. I'm joined by Alex Brown from Cornwall, England. Alex, what's going on?
Everything's all good, Graham. Very good.
So, I know that this is a couple weeks back, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But you did that event on M7 programs, which was a real, I thought it was really fun. I got to tune in as just an attendee, but you were peppering these coaches from our friends over at Leland about what it takes to get into M7. Any kind of, this is top of mind, any kind of salient points that came out of that discussion and that webinar that we did?
I actually thought it was a really good webinar. We had three, like you say, Leland coaches. Little nice bit of diversity in terms of the coaches represented and their points of view and so on and so forth. And we asked them some very straightforward questions, but they gave some super insightful answers. I think anyone that's targeting the top M7 programs, I don't know. I assume this recording will be available for folks to listen to.
Yeah,
I mean, they can come along and listen to me banter in between, but mostly listen to Claire and Bill and Christine. They had some really super insights to share.
Yeah, and so that audio, I think it should at this point already be up in our YouTube channel if you want to tune in. And so I think it was recorded and everything. So, and don't sell yourself short. I tuned in and I thought some of the comments you were making in between their comments were really insightful too. So it was great insights all around for people targeting the very best business schools. So just wanted to mention that. We're going to do this, you and I are going to get together on the 26th of August at noon Eastern. That's a Tuesday. And we're going to do kind of like a live stream. We're actually going to use our YouTube channel to do a kind of YouTube live thing right before the round one deadline rush. And I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can sign up to join us for that by going to bit.ly/CA YouTube Live. And actually what that'll do is that link will take you to our YouTube channel, which you will subscribe to, and then you'll get a notification about the event. We're also going to take your questions. So when you join us, you can ask questions, but if you want, you can also write in advance by writing to info@clearadmit.com. Just mention somewhere in there that this is for our little office hours that we're going to do on August 26th, and we will hang on to your questions and try to tackle them as we discuss anything and everything related to your round one or early deadline applications, which are coming fast and furious.
Yeah, they will be right after that session. So the session is timed to be deliberately just before the rush of those early and round one deadlines.
Yeah, I believe that literally 1 week and a day from our event on August 26th is like Harvard's deadline, which is sort of kicks off the season of top US MBA program deadlines. Then after that, we are going to continue to do more events with Clear Admit in September. We've got a whole September series. We'll do 3 kind of application insights events where I sit down with admissions directors, kind of like what we did in July, but the July event series was focused really exclusively on essays. And this session is more focused around really all aspects of the application, but we've got admissions directors signed up to join us from Wharton, Tuck, Duke, Darden, Chicago Booth, Columbia, Yale, Berkeley, INSEAD, LBS. There's a whole list of schools, Michigan. I think there are like 15 schools across the 3 dates that we're doing them. It'll be 3 Wednesdays in September. You can sign up for that by going to bit.ly/CA Inside MBA, all one word, all lowercase. So lots coming up. It's going to be exciting.
And just to be clear, you're hosting that, Graham.
Yes, I will be hosting those. Yeah, unless I fall ill and you want to step in and take one.
No.
The other thing that's going on is we continue to pump out a lot of content on the site, and we try to time this stuff to be appropriate for what people are working on. And so we did this tip about crafting the MBA essay that you can read on our site. And it's just all about, it's kind of a real primer on approaching a business school essay. And, it goes over some of the key tenets, which are, make sure you take time to reflect before you write, establish balance, like think about what are you sharing in this document versus elsewhere in your file, keep things relevant, classic show, don't tell. And then we added new for this year, a section on using AI and just some notes. And I think Lauren whipped that up in response to what we've been hearing from admissions directors when they've shared their views on AI in our admissions director Q&As and some of these webinars we've been running. So it's a really good tip that you should check out.
Yeah, no, very good. And that additional piece on the use of AI, I think is really important.
Yeah.
So it is a tool and you can use it in certain elements of preparing and developing your profile and as a brainstorming partner, et cetera, et cetera. But don't just reproduce AI written essays.
Yeah.
That would probably backfire.
Yeah, totally. And I believe if it's not in this admissions tip, I just want to remind people, you and I recorded, I want to say 4 or 5 videos about essay writing, and they tackle everything from some general tips to like how to write a career goals essay, how to write a failure essay. We have a whole series of videos. It's part of something we produce called the Admissions Academy with Clear Admit here. And you can watch those videos if you're on our website. They're all there and available to view. So I definitely recommend that too.
Yeah, no, brilliant.
One other thing we did is we launched apparently a new series that's called MBA Professor Profiles. The first school that is up, I think we're starting with like M7 schools, and the first school that's up is Wharton. And so we did this little article that Lauren and our team put together where we profiled a couple of the most notable professors at Wharton, and we're going to continue this series doing it for other schools. So for Wharton, we talked to, we did a profile on Katie Milkman, who's a professor in the Department of Operations, Information, and Decisions. And she's a bigwig. I mean, she has, like the list of people that she's consulted to are, the White House, Google, Walmart. So she's been providing advice all over. And she has a famous book called How to Change, The Science of Getting from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. So great professor, gets lots of accolades from students year in and year out. And then the other professor that we profiled, you could probably guess who this is going to be, was Adam Grant. He's one of the kind of very famous professors at Wharton. And, his expertise is more in organizational psychology, and he's published a ton of books that probably people have heard of, like Think Again, Give and Take, and Hidden Potential. So there's a profile on him as well. I'm looking forward to reading these because I actually, because I went to Wharton, know quite a bit about Wharton professors, but don't know as much about some of the top names at other schools. So I'm looking forward to seeing the other ones as these come out.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting series, and I'm glad that we're doing it. I'm a little surprised that Peter Fader wasn't chosen, but
I knew you were going to say that. I don't know. I wasn't behind the choice.
Yeah, that's just my personal bias.
Adam
Grant was famous even when I worked at Wharton, so he must be nearly as old as me.
Yeah, I don't know how old he is actually, but Peter Fader would be another great choice, great marketing professor at Wharton. But in any event, the other thing we did is we connected with a couple more admissions directors on the site. So we caught up with Rodrigo Malta, who's at Texas McCombs, and I just wanted to share a quote from him about essays and just applications in general. So here's what Diego had to say. He said, "Here's what gets me excited when reviewing applications. Reflection that connects your experiences to your MBA motivations and how McCombs fits into your personal and professional journey. Don't just tell me what you accomplished. Show me how you've grown, what insights you've gained about yourself, and how these experiences shaped where you want to go next. I want to understand your thought process and see your values in action. Let me be straight with you about what trips up applicants. Generic responses without concrete examples, exceeding word limits, and rehashing your resume. Instead, give me stories that illustrate your character and leadership potential while demonstrating genuine reflection on what you learned and why our program makes sense for your goals." So what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, really, really good. And obviously, Rodrigo is a real veteran of the industry, although it's odd to say that because I remember when he began in the industry. He might also be the guy, or it could have been another Adcom, that had a pretty interesting comment on the impact of AI, in as much as they're no longer using the essays to judge how well someone writes, but they're using the essays to understand that person better. I mean,
right, and
they articulated that probably more clearly than I just said it. But I think that does raise a good point. There's an expectation that AI is being used, so essays can no longer be used as a reflection of someone's English communication skills. But nevertheless, essays are the vehicle that you can use to really articulate who you are, what's important to you, how far you've come, etc., telling those stories.
Yeah, agree. And actually, I know who said it. It wasn't Digo. It was Patrick, who's who's on the admissions team alongside Digo over at UT Austin, and who also is a listener of this show, an avid listener. So I want to give him props for that great comment, because I think it's a really interesting development in our industry.
Yeah.
This notion that, we can't really rely on the essays as a way to measure someone's like English skills. It's just not going to fly anymore because everyone's correcting stuff with ChatGPT and stuff. So, but anyway, I think really good advice from Digo about ways to use the essays to shine. We also caught up with Andrea McHale, who's the admissions director over at Michigan Ross, and we asked her, we have this new question this year in the Q&As, which is about international students and what international students might need to keep in mind as they go through the process. And we put that question in on purpose because of all that's been happening in the current administration and changes to visas and to, whether it's a work visa or a student visa. So we wanted to get schools to weigh in on like, what are their priorities right now when it comes to international students and any advice there. So Andrea gave some good insights, and she basically says, we welcome international applicants and value the global perspectives they bring. It is important to clearly articulate your short-term career goals and demonstrate your understanding of the U.S. job market. If applying without a standardized test score, use the statement of quantitative academic readiness to highlight academic and professional accomplishments that showcase your quantitative and analytical capabilities. We also encourage international candidates to stay informed about visa timelines and consider time zone differences when scheduling interviews. Our team is here to support students through the process from application to arrival in Ann Arbor. So Alex, she touched on a number of different things that were probably popping into her mind as she's thinking about all the challenges and things that internationals face. But I thought it was helpful, and clearly that message of the fact that they welcome these students and the perspectives that they bring.
Yeah, frankly, I think business schools have a huge challenge ahead in the US to continue that very open and welcoming approach to international students. And quite frankly, if they lose that student body, in their incoming classes, that completely changes the value of the MBA they're offering, right? Because these international students bring fantastically different experiences to the conversation.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And so it's going to be a challenge ahead. I mean, I'm hoping, we see a lot of interest, the events we do, there are lots of international students applying to these top schools. So hopefully that continues, but you're absolutely right. Is there anything else going on or just on your mind in general? I got to mention, I'm recording this outside of Philly, and I'm near a train station. So I'm about to hear a giant train pass by. So I apologize in advance. But is there anything else on your side that you wanted to mention? We have a couple of candidates, actually 3, that we're going to profile as usual this week, but anything on your mind?
No, let's kick on.
All right. So this is Wiretap's candidate number 1. Our first candidate has 7 schools on the target list, and they're looking to start in the fall of 26. They're applying to Columbia, Duke, Harvard, NYU, Stanford, Wharton, and Yale. And their career to date has been in wealth management for ultra high net worth individuals. They are thinking of pivoting either into VC or potentially entrepreneurship after business school. And the companies that they list as potential targets are Excel Partners, Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia Capital, etc. They have a 3.7 plus undergraduate GPA, 4 years of work experience. They are currently located in Switzerland, but they did mention they were born in Romania, moved to Belgium as a child, where they grew up, and then they went to the UK, studied at a top 10 UK university, finished with a first-class degree in economics and political science, and then they started their career in wealth management at a top American bank in Switzerland, advising some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs. So that's been the kind of background. They did mention that as they've been doing that job, they've really become interested in entrepreneurship. And so for the past year, they've actually been working with a startup outside of their, full-time job, like kind of evenings and weekends gig. And they're just helping that startup prepare for a funding round and shaping the pitch, financials, et cetera. And they are looking to fully pivot into that space, get an MBA in America, where they believe the VC ecosystem is the strongest. You'll notice that I didn't share a GMAT score. That's because they have not yet taken it, but they do indicate that they're going to be taking it soon, and they're targeting a score of 675 plus. They do think they'll have strong recommenders, and then they play volleyball outside of work. They were on the university team as an undergrad and continue to pursue that interest. They've held leadership roles in student societies. They were a class rep during a class trip to China, and they currently lead recruiting and next-gen initiatives at work. So what do you make of this candidate? They did ask some specific questions, like they're kind of wondering, do we think the target schools align with the background? And if we just had any advice about how they might go about pitching their candidacy.
Yeah, they didn't have London Business School on their target list, right?
No, it's all US schools. Yeah.
I mean, this is a problem for Europe, right? Some of the top talent in Europe, they just all want to go to the US, right? Mm-hmm. And we've seen that I think is a problem, but not a problem for the US or for this candidate. And again, we just talked a little bit earlier about the importance of having international students at these top MBA programs in the US, because they have such a rich sort of cultural diversity in terms of careers, geography, etc., etc. So this is a case in point. You want this type of candidate in your top program. They got a first-class degree, so they've done very well at university in economics, and they obviously got a very decent job out of that university, and seemingly have done well. They've identified this interest in sort of entrepreneurship and venture capital, and they've acted it out in some regard with a startup, a local startup. So I think that's very, very good. So I think if they get their sort of target GMAT, or if they get a GMAT that's close to or at the median of the schools that they're targeting, overall they've got a really good profile. I do worry a little bit about the accessibility of transitioning straight into VC coming out of the MBA. And I just wonder, and I just don't really know the answer to this question, Graham, that wonder if there's a pathway would be augmented if they went to investment banking first to VC and so forth. My point for this candidate is just make sure they thoroughly research that and make that well understood as part of their application process. Don't just wait till they get to the university to their MBA to figure that out. And they may well understand that already, just making sure they articulate why they can make that transition now, because even the very top programs are sending a very small percentage into buy-side finance, and within that small percentage, many of them are coming from buy-side finance, right? So just want to make sure they're really realistic in that regard with their goals. But yeah, quite frankly, Graham, I like this candidate.
Yeah, I like the kind of, just the international background. Yeah. The work experience does seem solid. I think if they highlight their full-time job experience in the kind of domain of finance, that it might be enough to kind of make this pivot that they're looking to do. But they should, as you say, do the research, talk to the VC funds and see what they hear. But I feel like, the stuff they're doing on the side right now, helping an entrepreneur or startup to raise, go through a first round of funding, that's really invaluable experience if that's what they're trying to get into in the first place. So yeah, it should be good. The main thing for me is GMAT. They need to take this test still. I would tell them target a 685 plus, not 675, because I want to make sure that they're at least at the average for the schools that they're targeting. But I like the school list overall. I mean, I think, it's not exclusively M7. They have a couple of other schools on the list that make a lot of sense. So I think it's a good list. They have some of the big guns with, Harvard and Stanford, but they also have a number of other schools on this list. So I think they should be fine. I would not say they need to rejigger the list. But overall, it's a strong candidacy, and I really appreciate them sharing their candidacy in detail because it makes it easy for us to kind of talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you think they selected Yale and Duke?
I think anything's possible, but I think, when you look at, Yale's proximity to New York and all things happening there. And I think both Yale and Duke have excellent kind of international brands. And this person, may be looking to go back to Europe at some point. And so maybe they're trying to stick with brand name schools. I think they also just might find their curriculums to be very appealing. I mean, Duke's, obviously well regarded as a general management program. And so, yeah, there could be any number of reasons, but I feel like these are good schools to have on the list, especially, you can't go all in just on Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton or something.
Yeah. No, absolutely agree. I just was a little bit puzzled by Duke. I think Duke Fuqua is a great program, and obviously the leader of one of the biggest companies in the world came from Fuqua. So there you go. But I was curious why they selected that out of other sort of top 16 programs, but yeah, no, I like the fact that they spread their risk, so they've got reach, they've got target, as well as, I'm not calling those schools safety schools, but at least they've spread their risk a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, the only other school I would say that they might want to consider, I mean, obviously there are many they could, but one that comes to mind in America, because we're assuming that they really want to be in America, might be a Cornell, especially if they were thinking about heading into investment banking as the pivot. To VC or something.
Cornell, or you could even argue for Haas, right? Mm-hmm. If they want to do venture capital, and Silicon Valley being in that area, maybe that gives them an advantage. I don't know how strong Haas is on the buy side, or if they did that investment banking step, but geographically, Haas would be an interesting option.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem is there are just so many really good schools, so it's really hard to narrow. I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking, wow, they have 7. They're not going to apply to like 10 schools or something. So yeah, it's just tricky. But I like the list, and they obviously probably have their own reasons for some of these choices too. So
yeah, very good.
In any event, really appreciate them sharing. Let's move on though and talk about Wiretap's candidate number 2. So our second candidate this week has a whopping 11 schools on the target list. They've got BU, BC, Carnegie Mellon, Cornell, Emory, Georgetown, Georgia Tech, Indiana, Michigan, Michigan State, and Kellogg, all on the list. And they're looking to start school in the fall of 26. This person has been trained as a mechanical engineer. They're thinking about consumer goods or tech after business school. And so they mention a lot of the usual suspects, whether that's Amazon and Apple or Nestle and Nike. So there's a whole list here. I won't read it all. They have a GMAT score of 740, a GPA in undergrad of 8.35, which signals to me that they are from India, which they did point out as well. So 8.35 out of 10. 5.9 years of work experience, let's call that 6. And they're thinking of a post-MBA location. They say Washington, D.C., New York, Massachusetts, or Bloomington. We'll unpack that a little bit later. They do mention that they are currently, as I said, a mechanical engineer in a renowned company, and they listed an example, but I guess it's in India. The example of the company they listed, I was not as familiar with, IFB Industries Limited, but I'm presuming it's well known in India. They said they've been working at this firm as a senior design engineer and project manager. They also say they have lots of extracurricular activities, captain of a sports team, they've organized blood donation camps, event management, tech fests, meetings about robotics, so lots of different things they list here. And they've won a number of awards, Employee of the Year Award, Revenue Generator Award, etc. And they've taken some courses just on the side in Facebook advertising and marketing, advanced email marketing, so they have kind of a side interest in some of those things. But Alex, what do you make of this candidacy?
I don't think they're aiming high enough.
Yeah, that's possible.
I mean, I like this profile, Graham, right? Their stats are outstanding, right? So 8.35 GPA out of India. I think that's typically, we think that's very good.
Yeah.
740 on the GMAT, so that's very decent. Decent experience, right? You'd like to say 6 years of experience. They're a project manager, a senior design engineer. So that 8.35 GPA, by the way, was out of some kind of engineering discipline. So it wasn't an easy discipline. And they've got plenty of leadership outside of work, captain of a sports team, so they probably play cricket or whatever it is. So I think this is a profile for top 16, almost verging on M7, right? If they can execute eloquently as well as target the first round. So yeah, they're a bit sort of technology focused, engineering focused. I do think the first round will benefit them. So yeah, I'm not saying that the schools that they're targeting aren't all very good schools. And certainly some of those schools they should keep in their consideration set and apply to them. But I would encourage them maybe to identify one or two more top 16 programs and maybe even one more M7 and sort of replace out some of the top 25 that they've listed in their strategy. And yeah, I think there's quite a lot to like here if they're able to come in the first round and obviously do a good job with their applications, Graham.
Yeah, I do think you're making an interesting point because, yeah, on the surface you say 740, 8.35, which, out of India, like 7+ is usually going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to know where did they go to undergrad? If they went to one of the IITs, like even more astronomical would this GPA be, right? That would be pretty impressive. So we don't know that. They didn't say what school they went to. Yeah, the work experience sounds interesting. I mean, they do face this sort of stereotype, like Indian engineer, working as an engineer in a kind of technical role, but they've kind of moved up, and it does seem like they're in these sort of, senior design engineer, project manager. So they're probably doing some people management, which is great.
Yeah.
They have reasonable goals.
And quite frankly, and just being captain of the sports team, I think that just shows a different dimension of this person's profile, right? Mm-hmm. And they do volunteer experience and stuff. So that activity outside of work, I think, also really helps elevate their overall profile.
Yeah, and they did. I didn't mention this before, but they won an award at Toastmasters for best speaker, and Toastmasters is like a debate and public speaking club that exists around the world, I believe. So they're they clearly it seems like they're a leader, have strong communication skills, interesting work. Yeah, I think they just need to apply early and, as you say, probably could, narrow this list down so that they're not applying to 11 schools in the first round. Yeah. But, get five or six apps in round one and aim a little bit higher potentially and save some of those next tier programs for a round two situation if need be. Because I feel like with these stats, they could get into a BC or BU or some of these schools on their list even in round two, even if they're a little overrepresented.
Yeah. And someone would come back and say, well, they are applying to an M7 because I think Kellogg was on the list, and they are applying to a top 16. I think it's Ross. But
yeah, Ross is there.
But that's risky only applying to one M7 and one top 16, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I spread the risk a little bit across the tiers.
Yeah, totally agree. So in any event, I do want to thank them for sharing their profile, and hopefully they take this advice to heart and get working on those apps, get them all in as early as they can. But yeah, wish them the best of luck. Let's turn our attention, though, to Wiretap's candidate number 3. So our third candidate this week, Alex, it's simple to talk about what schools they're applying to because they just indicated all schools. So they're not sure yet. But they do want to start in the fall of 26, so they got to figure out school selection. They indicate that before business school, they've been working in strategy consulting and renewable energy, private equity portfolio management. They are interested in banking and private equity after business school. And they said, Bank of America, Barclays, Capital One. They give us a long list of banks that they chose: Goldman, JP Morgan Chase, etc. So lots of banks on the list. They've taken the GMAT once. They have a 625, but they do have a 4.0 GPA, and I know they're planning a GMAT retake sometime this month. They have 4 years of work experience to date. They're located in the States. They do indicate, though, they want to land in the States after business school. They're currently in London. They had, looks like they've done, 2.5 years of consulting, and then a couple years in renewable infrastructure for a PE portfolio team. So they've had a number of roles, but I think all of these have been in London, it sounds like. And I know you asked them about programs they're targeting, and they gave you kind of a fairly lengthy explanation, but they have, some top schools on the list. They mentioned that kind of top 15 is the sort of ballpark, but they're also thinking of applying to all of the programs that are in Texas, like Rice and UT Austin, McCombs, etc. And I think that might be related to this interest in energy. But anyway, I'll let you take it from here. I was like, what do you make of this candidacy? I know that they shared a number of details in the comments with you as you went back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think all three candidates this week are very, very good. Obviously, their GMAT at 625 is probably their weakest point, right? So for any candidate that's applying, when you've identified your weakest point, you've got to recognize that that might be the aspect of the candidacy that sort of sets the bar in terms of where you ultimately end up targeting and attending. So to the extent that she can elevate that test score, and I think she said, I think you perhaps mentioned, that she's going to retake it in August, and any boosting of that score will open up more opportunities, again, at the top 16 that you articulated, as well as the Texas programs. And I agree with you. I think her focus on Texas is clearly to do with her interest in the energy sector and so forth. And I like her current experience, right, in private equity, etc., on doing some of that stuff. So I think she's going to come across as a really strong candidate if she's able to elevate the GMAT score. And she can spread her applications over round 1 and round 2, I think. I don't think she's necessarily going to be overrepresented. But if she can elevate the GMAT prior to round 1, and get some of those applications in round 1, I think that'll help guide her maybe to nail the strategy for round 2 if necessary. But yeah, overall, Graham, I think this is another good candidate.
Yeah, and one thing I left out that I wanted to mention is that this is an Asian female who moved to Europe at the age of 10 and has lived and studied in like 4 countries in the last 20 years. And I guess the most frequently, though, or the most recent years have all been in the UK. So like I said, all that work experience has been UK based in London, but speaks English, French, Cantonese, went to a top 10 UK undergrad, and also already has a master's. It sounds like from LBS, but it's not quite clear. It might be a typo, but with a master's in, I guess, financial accounting, right? So it's, there's a lot to like here. And that's what makes the GMAT seem a bit odd. And I'm glad she's going to retake it, because 625 doesn't fit with everything else that's listed here, right? So, but I think a retake, higher score, and this person could be looking at M7 schools as a landing place. And, the goals seem to make sense to me, especially in light of the most recent work being, in renewable infrastructure for a PE portfolio team. So it doesn't seem like that big of a leap. And I feel like she's got, all the ducks are in a row with the exception of one, and she just needs to retake the test.
I didn't include it in my notes, Graham, so I forget. Did she have much activity outside of work?
Yeah, she's been doing like career mentoring for the last 3 years. She's like coached over 100 mentees, and mostly helping women who want to get into consulting or the energy sector. And she also does alumni interviewing and works as an ambassador for LBS, which is why I thought that the master's degree must be from LBS, by the way. And you'll love this. You must remember this. She's been actively involved in dog rescue. She's raised, quite a bit of money and saved a bunch of dogs. And she's a big sports lover, runs marathons. So yeah, she's got all that. Seems to be pretty darn good, right?
I was going to say, you keep going on and on. She's got a lot of stuff going for her, no doubt in my mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see M7 in her future if she can pull that score up a bit. That's going to be, as you say, that one time, sometimes that weakness can be the thing that sets the bar for you. So in any event, we'll see where she lands. But I do want to thank her for sharing all this information. Again, very helpful as we try to assess candidacies and give advice. Alex, anything else you got for this week?
That's it. Best of luck, everyone. Stay safe.